Welcome to the American Intelligence Media. This is Douglas Gabriel and Michael McKibben. Today, we are going to explain to you the brainwashing that is going on from every single mainstream media news agency, which does in fact make it what Trump called them, enemy of the state. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, Douglas. Great to be here.
So, Michael, you know how I get all worked up and upset and all this stuff.
You
and then
do.
We call you in to be calm and to explain things to people. And anyway, you're the one who found this amazing information you're going to describe. But first, let me just say, it seems as if there is no free speech in Europe now. And Britain, nope, no free speech there. And we thought that we still had a few moments over here in America, but we don't. Because Google has united with the Department of Defense, and now all news everywhere that's being broadcast in America is being analyzed by something called, that Google calls the Digital News Initiative, and it's filtering it all down to just what they consider to be the truth, or in other words, let's call the truth for them, what's being read across the screen at the bottom and what they're saying, and they're all saying the same thing. So what we have here is in fact a complete propaganda machine. And when people show this on Facebook, they'll show all the mainstream media news agencies all saying almost exactly the same words, but certainly the same exact content at the same time. And we had noticed for a long time that no one gives any investigative journalist reports anymore. No one gets a byline, whether it's for a story or a picture or anything. And we've been harping about the fact that Reuters, Thompson, and Associated Press controls all the news. But in your investigation, and we've chatted about this before, but let's get really serious. Why is it, and what have you discovered, is behind the one script that is being given out by all major media outlets in America, which are owned by 6 corporations? So what's causing that to happen, Michael?
We discovered this in the gift that keeps on giving, otherwise known as Lord Mark Malloch Brown. And the latest is shocking. Some of our researchers discovered that in one of the companies that he discloses by the name of Investec, he's got something like 370 subsidiaries inside Investec. And so there were people who started going through each one of those companies, and they ran across an interesting company by the name of ISIS Management Limited. And, of course, the name ISIS stuck out like a sore thumb. So they did more digging, and lo and behold, we discovered that the Avid suite, now I'm sure that's not familiar to most people, but if you're in the broadcasting business, Avid is the go-to technology that's used in most newsrooms now around the planet. And what it does is it helps them to produce their presentations, produce the crawlers that come along the bottom on the screen, produce the video that they use during a news program. It actually pumps text to the readers that are used by the newscasters when they're reading from a script. And it even got worse, Douglas. And I hate to keep bringing everything back to our invention, but this story goes right to 2010. It goes right to the time when we now know from Judicial Watch discovery of Hillary's emails that she, through the State Department, was paying Facebook to build a template to win elections. And that's what they call it on their documents. And we never knew exactly what that template was, but now we do know in that the Facebook manager, Dmitry Shevelenko, who is actually on the GSA contracts that where they were paying Facebook for this technology and service, he went to India for a year, and in India he developed this template for winning elections. and that was in 2010. Well, now we know from further investigation of this ISIS management group that they were building software for the Avid suite, which is the technology that the newsrooms use, and they were specifically developing a product that you have the brochure, people can see it on the links to this video, I believe, that Betsy's putting at the bottom, that they built a product called Leader Plus. And the shocking thing is they used our brand name. They didn't even bother changing the name. I guess they thought we weren't going to make it. And this Leader Plus product is specifically designed to feed scripts to the teleprompters in newsrooms on election night to, quote, remove the headache of broadcasting on election night.
Boy, it's a headache for me to have to wait a whole day to find out who the new president is. I can't wait. I don't care who they... Oh, by the way, is that the reason that they capitulate that night? Because they believe the lies told by Leader Plus?
Well, it's pretty obvious they do.
Yeah, so now we see
so
that's standard now.
Now we have proof. We have proof. People can look at it on this video at the link at the bottom. And I'm going to read right from their brochure. The title is Avid Leader Plus Election Night Headache Relief. That's the name of the product. And essentially, it's not very complicated. It's a use of several of the modules in our invention, mainly the files tool and the text tool, and they modified the interface so that somebody at a central location that's controlling this Leader Plus software can input the text that they want the newscasters to read, and then they can push not only text, but they can also push media, videos, and audios down to the newsrooms. And so anybody that's logged in through the Avid Plus software, which is managing the newsroom, to this product can immediately have their scripts pushed to them without them even having to write them themselves. And the opening of this brochure says, Avid Leader Plus is a comprehensive, user-friendly election management system, whatever that means. I think that's Freudian, don't you?
Absolutely.
It automates the process of collecting election data, organizing it, and publishing the results quickly, efficiently, and accurately, meeting election night demands ranging from vote collection and analysis of instant updating. Avid Leader Plus provides fast, automatic election night headache relief to the newsroom. That's their words.
Well, Trump just signed a directive to basically, as you also know, in the last week, to increase cyber security for the elections. But also at the same time, Facebook came out and said, oh no, same thing that happened in 2016 is happening again in 2018, and we can't tell who's doing it, and election rigging. Hello, this is the election rigging, and Optech, which you've pointed out in the same research with the same group of people, that there's a software program that runs all of the digital election devices in America. And now what we hear is it doesn't matter if they can manipulate them up to the point that Leader Plus tells you who won, and then the other side capitulates that night. The election is over. There's no recount when you capitulate.
Yes. Well, let me read you the second paragraph. It's under the heading Standard IT Components. Avid Leader Plus is a network-based program that operates on a Windows Server platform and can be incorporated into any station's existing network. So that was a key thing to unifying how this gets broadcast to all the networks simultaneously. The election database server next to a network hub to communicate to multiple workstations, i.e. multiple newsrooms, and the client workstations can run from the same desktop as the current newsroom computer system client. Very important, make this really easy for the newsrooms to implement. With standard PCs and laptops, support for any wire service. Now, wire service, AP, UPI, whoever they want to feed it from, or in your case, you're saying it's this global broadcast initiative. Local and network printers, common networking components, character generators, and output to the web, Leader Plus makes the election night newsroom process seamlessly interoperate with the rest of the station's equipment. And then they've got a checklist of a bullet of benefits. Sign on all users from this one location. Double-check database backup, profiles, scripts, and URLs. Set up producer wire and precinct lists. In other words, they get this connected right to the precincts. What? Confirm character generator configuration. In other words, how the text is pushed to their newsroom. Set up web polling and ingest information. I love that one. Update output to station's website. In other words, they've even got it now to where this software then pushes the results not only on the TV or radio, but also to the website simultaneously. Set up and start wire services. The race is on is their last bullet.
Isn't that beautiful? Not only do they control the news they tell you, and it's the same consistent lie, because as we now know, 97% of what they report about Trump is a lie. And 70-some% of Americans believe that mainstream media simply lies. So they control the lie because it all comes from the Associated Press and Reuters, Thompson, and basically it has to filter through the NSA before it even gets to them, by the way. And we can go into all those different programs, but you can read about those on your own. We've reported on them. So by the time it gets to the newsroom, they don't even trust these bumbos who are reading the news to be able to read the news. They actually tell them exactly what to read and when to read and what to queue up. And even if the picture they're showing has nothing to do with what they're talking about, I doubt that they would notice. And so one day when Trump said, seemingly by making a simple mistake by not adding one word to what he was saying as a response to a newscaster who was a journalist who was asking him a question, I think they put up on their prompting screen, "Go crazy." Because at the same time, in all mainstream media, they all attempted to go crazy on Trump, and they all basically said what their problems are, not what Trump's problems are. And so every once in a while, when they actually do go off script, it's pathetic and it's so obvious. So what we have here is the news being controlled by Avid, and then we have Leader Plus controlling election night. We have Optech controlling the machines, and we have Lord Malik Brown owning those machines along with George Soros and Mitt Romney and Mitt Romney's son, who actually controls Smartmatic. So we are talking about a pervasive control of free speech concerning the elections. And now I'm looking at the new presidential. Donald J. Trump is strengthening the security of our elections. It's a statement that he's made, and he's saying that he is going to basically protect us from foreign interference in our elections from any nation state. And the reason I looked at this immediately is to see if the next phrase is there, or other malicious actor. Because in the news he's been saying he is going to fight a foreign intervention in our elections. And before that, he was talking about what about the domestic intervention and British intervention and the Five Eyes intervention. But at this point, he basically has said he's going after everyone who is messing with the election, domestic.
Well, let me read you another bullet point under product highlights. It speeds up election night vote collection and analysis and makes it easy to set up races in advance. Provides automatic updating of races from AP wire feeds, California Secretary of State, and any other ANPA formatted election feed. Now, this was a 2010 brochure, so they were clearly selling it to California at that time. But there we have the AP wire feed that you're talking about. And then down below that, under an illustration, it says, on election night, the Leader Plus system automatically displays the on the talent screen whichever race is loaded on the software, providing on-air talent with easy-to-read, detailed information about the race and about each candidate. A desktop or laptop is typically placed on the election set for the talent. Now, I have empirically proved that this is the system that's used across the country, and just experientially, I work out at the Y, and there's a lot of screens, and typically they'll have CNN, MSNBC, and CNBC up on the screen. And for the last 2 or 3 days, I've just been paying attention, and it is uncanny how certain anti-Trump messages are displayed simultaneously across 3 different networks at the same time. You see the crawlers coming underneath with each of the sessions. Now, it's not always exactly the same wording, but it's close. And so they're even addressing the same topics at the same time now. I mean, if you do this, anybody can do this.
Yellow journalism. It's clearly lies. It's the control of the 6 major corporations that controls all major media, including Fox News, and the fake Fox News being the Republican conservatives. That's some of them sometimes are, but they still don't go far enough. They don't really point at who the overlords really are, who the deep state is, and get quite specific, because when have any of them mentioned Senior Executive Service, which is the deep state here in America in our federal agencies? So what we see here is across the board, there has been total infiltration into controlling free speech in America. Mainstream media does not allow free speech. And with this new initiative bought by the Department of Defense, created by Google, called the Digital News Initiative, they are trying to wean out anyone who doesn't have the same exact news story. Now, those crawlers you mentioned, we had posted some stories that had indicated, that had shown, in fact, that while Trump was talking, the crawler beneath says Paul Manafort has confessed to 5 cases of manslaughter. Now, how do you accidentally press a key that then comes out to say Paul Manafort has confessed to 5 cases of manslaughter? No, this is what's really going on. That's because they didn't press the button for subliminal. Because there's subliminal control going on in those crawlers. There's lots of overt and subliminal control going on in the weeding out of the news and then the pruning of the news down to be nothing but the negativity that they want to go against whoever the political opponent is at that moment, which, as we know, is in general, the news agencies are extremely democratic, progressive, they call it far left, and now Trump has called them the enemy of the state. Now, one other thing before I'm going to ask you the blunt question I'm going to ask you and see what you say about this, but Facebook has been taken over by George Soros, who has given basically endless money, $1.5 billion, to the Atlantic Council and their group called Digital Forensic Research Lab, and they're going in and using the same truth fact machines and AI, supposedly, to scrub everything that isn't true from everything on the internet. And that has now taken over Google, YouTube, and Facebook. And George Soros is proud to say that he's supporting this. Now, let me just say the Atlantic Council is the #1 Russia-phobia group in the world. Their job is to blame everything on Russia. And isn't it interesting that George Soros did this in Europe and they blamed all the bad elections on who? Vladimir Putin, who does nothing but stay on his computer and mess with elections around the world. And who are they blaming it here in America? Oh, that's right, George Soros. No, the Strategic Communications Laboratory that got the $76 million contract to control the Global Engagement Center for Obama during the 2016 election. That was, in fact, the true Russian meddling. And as you pointed out, it was even a Russian who created the template for winning for Hillary when she paid $265,000 out of government money to use these tech monopolies to basically control free speech, control the narrative, and attempt to control the election. So tell me, in your opinion, Michael McKibben, is the media the enemy of the state after what you've just told us?
I'm going to answer as a citizen and say anytime I see anything like this where people stop thinking and simply read off of a teleprompter because it's convenient, I would say that's prima facie evidence that they're not thinking, they're doing whatever they're told, and they're a part of a tyranny, and therefore they are enemies of our republic.
Would they qualify as malicious actors, according to Trump's new statement that he's going after malicious actors?
Well, of course, this is malicious. This is intentional. I mean, look at this brochure. I mean, they're not even hiding it anymore. This brochure was out there publicly available, but I was not aware of this product, had never heard of it. And then I find it's even got our brand name on it. I mean, these people are so arrogant.
And they don't even care to hide it very much. I mean, when you can turn on all the news and see the same news being said, just in slightly different words because that particular person, changed a few words.
Well, this product can allow that. That's what they call the character scripts. That's how they do that. They call it the confirmed character generator configuration. That's where they can, no doubt, develop an idea and then push the idea out with about 3 or 4 different types of crawlers, so that people can pick, and they could probably even designate which network gets which crawler.
Oh, and so Dan Rather has a very vicious AI that rewrites it for him so he can be particularly nasty, or so these individuals can literally have it almost scripted for them, so it sounds like
I don't think it's AI. I think people, if you've got control of this Leader Plus feed system, then it's people sitting down writing these things. I don't think it's automated. I think people are writing it.
Well, when they do the thing to make it more personalized for them, can they just set it up to say, I'm Anderson Cooper and I want to be really nasty and everything I say has to be against Trump, so I want it phrased and just for me?
Well, if I were looking at how this is designed, they're using one of our tools called News, and they're able to break it down into a hierarchy, so they could have a news for, let's say, television station A with a list of all the talent. So whenever they decide a master topic, they can then break down the feeds to each of the people, so it looks like they're all saying different things, when in fact one person's writing it for all those different people. I'm sure that's the way it's happening.
So basically we have one news agency, which is the mouthpiece of the corporations that own the 6 major news corporations, and those are owned by the big bankers, the big brokers, the same old people who have their money invested in the military-industrial complex. So then, in essence, the one news media station, which is yellow journalism, it's sheer propaganda and lies, is simply pumping out what I would imagine then is the message to be a happy consumer and make sure that you give us taxes so we can go to war and spend money on building new missiles and putting 5G into space and giving Elon Musk, hundreds of millions of dollars to waste on Tesla cars and, the kind of things we do in the government. So basically, that is what the news agencies are really there for. It's to keep...
It's obvious that that's what they're there for. This would be a very addictive product, because once you've used it a few times, then you don't have to hire people to actually write stories and do real journalism. You can just wait for it to be fed to you from this Avid Leader Plus product. They have another product called ISIS Management, by the way, which is an adjunct to this, which manages all their video assets. So whenever they're using supportive video for a story they're doing, they can go to the ISIS Management suite and pull up the video and play that while they're talking.
Which I notice.
This has been going on full bore, clearly, at least from 2010 and probably before that. And so we've been getting fed this AP Newswire feed to all of our stations ever since then. So that's what everybody should be asking. Where are you getting your feeds for your election night? And my opinion is there needs to be legislation to shut down the use of this Leader Plus service, because it's clearly an enemy of the Republic.
Yes, especially because it's election fraud. And
right.
And then with the issue of free speech and Avid, and the way that it seems as if these news agencies are really working against, at this point, the administration, and previous to that, they're working for the administration as a weaponized tool to keep the Obama administration's 8 years of lawlessness. It didn't reach the screen. It didn't reach the news. But now, every single day, practically, certainly every week, we find out new crimes of Obama. We find out things that he did that were never reported. And when they were reported to cover up what he was actually doing. So is there free speech?
You can do whatever you want when you have this product.
Exactly. So is there free speech left here in America? Are we...
No. There's no free speech here. This is somebody writing it for you. This is what Eric Schmidt said. Remember when he was interviewed by Charlie Rose, and he told Charlie Rose that in the future, when you do a Google search, you're going to get one answer, and it's going to be the right answer. This is all a part of that same mentality. They're feeding the populace the right answer. No wonder Hillary called people who listen to this deplorables. They saw how easy it was to feed this junk out to people, and they believed it.
And we know that they can filter anything they want out of the internet. That's being done in China. It's being done in Turkey. It's been done all over the place. So if they want, they can filter completely the entire alternative news, which I just saw a list of, I think it was 65 alternative news stations that were closed down just overnight, no warning. Some of them had millions of followers. And I believe that we are seeing, through the fact that Trump doesn't approve of this, the senior executive service in all areas of the federal agencies basically just tightening the bureaucratic knot, the Gordian knot, around the administration they don't like. And they have now weaponized all the intelligence agencies against him. They're attempting a coup against him continuously. Of course, it's being revealed. But I wonder if the breaking news of the crimes of this cabal, this Washington, D.C. cabal, is going to outpace their attempt to stop free speech from pointing out really who they are and the crimes that they've committed.
I guess time will tell. It's clear to me from the evidence that they've been at this for a long time. And if this brochure was printed in 2010, they had this feature before that. And this was, by the way, occurring right when we were suing Facebook before the trial. And they've been at it for a good solid 8 years, so they went through 2 Obama administrations with it. And it appears to me that the only way this is really going to work for them is if they do shut down alternative news, because otherwise this single voice of the, quote, correct answer will not be effective, because the alternative media can investigate it and shut it down and discredit it. And I think they're finding that's happening too often. So the only thing they can do is revert to authoritarian shutdowns, which is what they seem to be doing now.
Well, in December of 2016, the Joint Intelligence Report on Russian Interference in the Election said, yeah, there was Russian interference. It's called Russia Today and Sputnik, 2 Russian news networks. They haven't closed them down. They made them file as Russian agents. Okay. They won't close them down. Why? Because we have one of those in every country in the world. We have Voice of America in Russia. We have our propaganda news going everywhere. And if we listen to that propaganda news, which I have, in other countries, you won't recognize it, because that isn't anything like the truth. So we are the propaganda masters, and we have propagandized the entire world. And now, because of Obama.
Well, I have a question for you. Weren't you involved in some of that kind of stuff in your former life in the NSA?
You love to bust me, don't you? I was just. You love to bust me, don't you? I was just telling.
Yeah, I do.
The conclave,
you know what you're talking about is what I'm trying to get at.
I used to sit as a private first class when I was working in the NSA. My first job was to look at the news coming from Reuters, the Associated Press, and the UPI, and strike from it anything that I personally thought might in any way have anything to do with national security. So
Did you feel powerful?
Yes, I did. I created the news that you would read. And if I made a mistake and allowed something out, it was my neck that was on the line. My job was to make sure nothing. So if there was any doubt in my mind, I struck it. So in other words, that's the reason you see so little news on the mainstream media about the world or anything going on or the truth, or nothing about banks or corporations or the cheating or the lying or the very... How about this? Why don't we just talk about, let's just focus for a day on all mainstream media on Robert Mueller covering up 9/11. Okay? Oh, not going to happen. Robert Mueller taking yellow cake uranium to Putin. Oh, for Hillary, for the Uranium One deal. Oh, not going to happen. Why? They're never going to address these things. They're covering up the crimes and making sure that the programming to Americans is stay focused on entertainment and sports, And remember, you got to keep paying your bills, and you shouldn't be thinking at all, because we're going to give you so much digital attacks that you won't actually be able to keep a thought in your head, because you'll be bombarded from all directions at once. That's really what is going on. So Americans don't even have a chance, really, to think unless they pull back from the news, pull back from the television, the radio, stop believing that garbage. One minute of that subliminal garbage, as well as the overt garbage, will actually make you sympathetic to things that make no sense whatsoever. And when asked about it logically, once you've been subliminally programmed, you get angry and become Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the SPLC. You become a George Soros follower by joining a non-governmental organization that has a really great title to it, but does the opposite of what the title says. And you won't even notice, because why? You're out there saying no borders. But if your child was stolen and never returned to you by an illegal alien, I bet you'd change your mind. So as long as you are being controlled by the subliminal programming coming off of mainstream media, I really don't think that people have much of a chance to wake up. But when they do, they often wake up very angry, very upset. So I'm going to try to quell that upset with what we're saying by telling you that Trump just put out another order, basically declaring war on these people who did that to him during his election. And that's a very good thing. And he knows that there's no Russians involved in any of this. That's just a big lie. He knows it's the Atlantic Council. We pointed it out. It was Alexandria Chalupa and her sister and her cousin, who were the Ukrainian agents that helped create the dossier. It was her idea to begin with. This is her specialty, smearing Russia and keeping their candidates in office, which was Hillary Clinton. So we see all this corruption. And what I like is that Trump is allowing them, and now he's even saying, oh, yes, Russian meddling in our election. We have to stop all meddling, but he says Russian meddling and all other malicious actors. Sorry, John Podesta. Sorry, Hillary Clinton. Sorry, Joe Biden. Sorry, Obama, Loretta Lynch, John Kerry. Sorry to all of you, because what you just did is you gave him the power to use against you by using the crimes that you said Russia committed, which you committed, for him to open up another war. We're already in a national emergency. We are on a national emergency for a variety of reasons, and he's taken all kinds of extraordinary actions people don't even know about. But what I believe is going to happen now is I believe we may have the first honest election in American history in the modern times, because he has already set up an entire group of people who are monitoring these things. And if there's going to be any weirdness, it's going to be noticed this time. And fortunately, it's in the midterm. So then when Trump's election comes around, hopefully he will have ended all of this meddling in the election, opened up free speech, and stopped Avid and ISIS management and Leader Plus controlling the elections.
So I think one of the things that patriots can do is make phone calls to all of their local news stations and find out if they're using the Avid Suite Leader Plus product or something similar that pushes election information to the station. And I think they ought to demand that there be an embargo on the use of that technology, period. If that news station cannot create its own news, it shouldn't be pumping out what somebody else writes for them that they have no way of or time to vet.
Absolutely. And demand that no op-tech, no computer, no digital election machine that uses op-tech should be allowed in an American election. It was created by the CIA in Venezuela by, yes, you might as well say it,
Lord Mark Malloch Brown.
Thank you very much.
With George Soros.
When he worked for the
United Nations. Then they moved it to London.
Mm-hmm. And when he worked for the United Nations, they rigged the elections in Venezuela with Jimmy Carter's help, and then took that very system and made it worldwide and made it permanent in America to this very day. The CIA, rogue CIA, is in control of our elections because they can use PC Anywhere to go in and adjust op-tech. So where is the power of the people in this election to take back what the government has turned over even to British agents working against us, and people like George Soros, certainly an enemy of the state. I don't know why he isn't declared one now for his tax evasion and many other things that he's done. But we need to realize that Trump is turning this around to say, yeah, Russian interference in the election. That's why I'm now going to spend a fortune to make sure there's no interference in the election. So once again, the Trump effect, they attacked him, it bounced back and got them, and their own crimes are revealed when they tried to foist crimes upon him that he did not commit. So that's the good news. And what you're saying and the research you've done has pointed out exactly how we can stop this. Matter of fact, aren't there people you know working on some kind of a writ of mandamus? Yes. Can you tell us about that?
There are folks working on that in various states right now to basically impound the electronic machines and go back to paper ballots and IDs and bipartisan chain of custody.
So
pretty simple solution can happen in this election. It's
so
not
they can
complicated.
Get a hold of this writ, and they can submit the writ because we, the people, control elections, not the government.
Each state would have to submit its own writ.
Exactly. So we are giving solutions. You have worked this out with the Center for Self-Governance and some other people, and that's a beautiful thing, as well as we've given you all the information through the research that was done by Americans for Innovation and the good people at Leader Technology, the true inventors of social networking, which would not have been surveilled, by the way, had Michael McKibben and his company been in charge. It would not have been weaponized as it has been, and it would not be used to stop our free speech, and it would not be used to rig elections. So, Michael, again, your research has shown us the way in and the way out of the mess that we're in, but you would have never created that mess yourself, but you showed us really what was to be the tool for freedom and for free speech, which has now been weaponized against us. And now you're telling us, through your research, the very ways that we can countermand what is truly an attack upon the American people through taking away free elections. So thank you. Once again, you and your group are doing amazing work. So let's talk again soon, and let's go out there and keep looking for the solutions.
Will do. Great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Michael.